it wasn't necessarily by choice, right? It was the circumstances around me. Work wasn't just going well. We got bought over by a firm, and somehow, somewhere along the way, like the practice of medicine for me started to shift, and it was more about the bottom line. It was more about, it almost felt like we were just moving the meat, right, instead of doing real medicine.
Mm,
And at some point, it was very clear that I had to look out for me, and we had to look out for ourselves, because our 9 to 5, or my 9 to 5, wasn't certain anymore, and that in a split second I could lose my job. And so I started realizing that, like, all I had was income, but I wasn't really growing wealth, right?
mm,
And even if we do really well, you know, I started learning that, like, a six-figure salary, it came with no ownership. It came without any time freedom. And it just felt like, and I've talked about this before, right? It just felt like this pretty golden cage.
One look and I breathe.
Welcome once again to Grow This Personal Podcast. Today on the show, I have an amazing guest, Dr. Nkem. I've been following you for quite a while, and the work that you do is inspiring. It's
Mm.
amazing. Stories like yours is one of the stories that we'll look at and we're like, hmm, it's possible. It's possible to be a medical doctor and still do something else. you know it reminds me of this story. This guy I stumbled some time ago was this Ali Abdal, who runs a
Mm.
very huge YouTube channel, who became from a doctor and is doing something else. So when you're reading your story for the first time, when I saw you on LinkedIn and following your journey, I was like, we have to get you on the show. So Dr. Nkem Ezemana, Ezemama. Did I pronounce it
It's
well?
it's it's a mama.
Ezemama.
Yes.
What's the meaning of Ezemama?
It means a well-known king.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. And Dr. Nkem, is that a full name, or is that just a
The full name is Nkemka, but
Nkem?
everybody calls me Nkem.
Nkem. Okay. Dr. Nkem, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. So let's go straight in. Well, today we're going to be
Okay.
talking about breaking free from 9 to 5. And not to say the 9 to 5 it's a bad thing, or I
Yeah.
like I've seen one of your posts some time ago where you talked about the 9 to 5 trap and how you can build wealth, freedom, and
Yep.
fulfillment on your own time. So I want to really dive into that, especially for people who are working professionals, because part of a huge audience for our podcast are working professionals. So I'm really fascinated about our conversations today. So let's talk about Dr. Nkem. Who is Dr. Nkem, and what do we need to understand about where you were like 5 years ago to where you are now?
Well, that's a really good question. So, I'm an ER physician, and I'm also the CEO and founder of Phoenix Capital. And 5 years ago, yeah, 5 years ago, or maybe a bit longer,
Well,
I just used to work in the ER, and it brought me satisfaction, right? I'm grateful for the fact that I get to make a difference. I get to touch lives, and I get to meet people at maybe some of the hardest points in their life, and to
mm,
shed some light in that space. But at some point, I started thinking, what else? And it wasn't necessarily by choice, right? It was the circumstances around me. Work wasn't just going well. We got bought over by a firm, and somehow, somewhere along the way, like the practice of medicine for me started to shift, and it was more about the bottom line. It was more about, it almost felt like we were just moving the meat, right, instead of doing real medicine.
mm,
And at some point, it was very clear that I had to look out for me, and we had to look out for ourselves, because our 9 to 5, or my 9 to 5, wasn't certain anymore, and that in a split second I could lose my job. And so I started realizing that, like, all I had was income, but I wasn't really growing wealth, right?
mm,
And even if we do really well, you know, I started learning that, like, a six-figure salary, it came with no ownership. It came without any time freedom. And it just felt like, and I've talked about this before, right? It just felt like this pretty golden cage. or how we describe it as this hamster wheel that we just kept going and going and going and going and going, and there was nothing to show for it. Or you were just in this pretty looking cage, but like that was tying you down and that was holding you down.
Hmm.
And so that's when there was a shift for me, right? And that's when I started investing. My heart and my goal with investing was to build wealth outside of my 9 to 5. But I then realized that the people that were doing it didn't look like me. And the people that really, had the secrets or knew, they were not us. And so I started to educate my community, and I said, we can build wealth. Like, we can actually build generational wealth through, real estate investing, through alternative assets, through diversification. And why aren't we doing that? And it was from there that Phoenix was born, really. And the heart and the goal is to help professionals build wealth outside of their 9 to 5. So you use that, your 9 to 5, as almost feels like a cushion, but then you can continue to use that to diversify into different aspects of, whether it's different ways of real estate investing, whether it's passive, whether it's active, there's other forms of, like, and we could talk about different ways to really build wealth. But the biggest thing was education, and it was awareness. And that's what I was bringing to my community.
Education and awareness. Thank you for that introduction that almost started like a master class. But let's talk about, you often say that, and I've seen it in one of your posts, that 9 to 5 is actually keeping people broke. So
yeah,
what do most people misunderstand about financial security today?
Ooh, that's a good one. And it's true to some extent, right? And we, like I said it earlier, right? Because a lot of people, and I was one of them, right? I was confusing income for wealth. And so it felt like, I was making some money and I was doing well, but was I really building wealth? And that's the question that a lot of people have to think about, right? And like I said, that 6-figure salary or whatever that figure is, right? It doesn't come with any ownership. It doesn't come with any time freedom. It doesn't even come with assets that are compounding, right? It just is what it is. And if that ends one day, what do you have to show for it, right? So if your money stops working, if you get fired, if something happens, you don't have that freedom, right? All you had was a high paying job that just gets, that just like, that went away, and you have nothing to show for it. And the system, I think that the system that we live in, it incentivizes, or it allows you, it encourages you to consume, but it doesn't give you the idea of creation, right? To create something that is your own, to figure out a way that you can give value to others and build something. Us high income earners, we're taxed at the highest rate,
Right.
but with that comes like the least amount of leverage. So what do we have to show for that? That's what you have to start thinking. That's why your 9 to 5 is keeping you broke, because the second it goes away, you have nothing to show for it. As opposed to, this is the time that you need to start thinking about creation. What can I build? What will serve me in the long run? Where does my purpose lie with my passion, which then aligns with how I can bring value to someone else? That is how you have to start thinking. If you're thinking, maybe I want to think outside of my 9 to 5.
Why is it important to think this way? Like, in this day and age, we're hearing things like recession and all of that. Why is it important to think this way, even while you have a 9 to 5?
Because your 9 to 5 is not guaranteed, right? And like I said, in a split second, it can be taken away from you. So what are you building outside of that? What are you doing to help you cushion what you do? And there's nothing wrong with, like, doing what you love. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you have to build, you have to build the placeholders in place that will help you when your 9 to 5 is gone. And there's that mindset. And I hope we get to talk about mindset, because I even think that that's one of the most important things.
Yeah.
But it's, how do you start changing that mindset? How do you start realizing that, like, I cannot rely on this 9 to 5. It's great, but then I want to use it as a bridge to do something else. The reason why we have to start thinking about that is because nothing is guaranteed. And we are, it almost feels like we're told a lie, right? That we have to keep doing that. We have to keep, we have to keep staying on that treadmill, keep running, or that hamster wheel, or that golden cage. But there's more to that. There's more to building, to creating, to giving value in exchange for something. When you start thinking about that, when you start understanding that, I think that's when like the light bulb goes off and you realize that this is something that you want to embark upon. This is something that you want to learn about. This is something that maybe you want to put some time and effort into.
I want to take you on the mindset part because
Okay.
we're going into a deeper conversation, but I want to go back to mindset quickly.
Okay.
What do people who say, hey, I've been in my job for 10 years, like I'm really enjoying my job, I think I'm doing really well, I don't see my job going because I'm probably in a
Okay.
very high demand job and all.
Mm-hmm.
What mindset do this person have to be able to say, okay, I want to start 9 to 5, but how do I have to think? What kind of mindset do I have to be able to go on this journey?
Oh, that's a good question. And I'll speak from experience, right? Because I think that is the hardest part, because entrepreneurship, transitioning, it's really 80% mindset and it's 20% mechanics. That is very
Mm,
hard to understand and to accept, especially when you're in the beginning, right? Because you think, okay, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. But you have to have the right mindset. And that mindset is that like you're worthy of more than just survival. You are literally worthy of more than 9 to 5. You have to think that, you have to understand that. And you almost have to shift from like this employee mindset, and you have to start thinking like a creator. Like, I can build something, I can
mm,
give value. What can I use to leverage? I think
mm,
that that's where the mindset piece comes, right? And along those lines, when you start thinking about shifting your mindset, right, you have to also start thinking, a lot of what we do is the who, right? Who do I need to surround myself around? I'm surrounding myself around people who like want to live an expansive life, right? People who
mm,
are like, yes, I do have aspirations outside of my 9 to 5. You want people who will help you squash some of the fears that you have and some of those limiting beliefs, like, who am I to even think that I can do this, right? Who am I to think that like anybody will listen to me? Like, what if I fail? What if I look stupid? These are the things that you're thinking about. But when you have the right mindset, you begin to start overcoming some of those fears. You begin to start like squashing those limiting beliefs and realize that, yes, I am a physician, but I'm also a real estate investor. And I can really help people build generational wealth and start thinking about legacy creation. I'm
mm.
capable of that. Like, you have to start thinking. That is how you have to start thinking. And it starts with mindset, right? You have to almost rewire your beliefs. So think, how can I get exposure? Who do I need to be around? What new rooms do I need to surround? Like, where do I need to enter into? I talked about education. Education is so important. What books am I reading? What podcasts am I listening to? Like, who are the mentors that are speaking life into my idea, into my creation, into me taking a step? And then I talked about something real quickly, and I kind of want to share that, right? In the
Mm.
beginning, it's about small wins. So you're not changing the world while you're doing your 9 to 5, right? But it is those small, tiny, consistent steps that you're taking every day that will make all the difference. So I would say, if you're listening to this, the first big piece is mindset. It is really understanding the part that your mindset plays. It almost feels like mindset is the foundation. It's the first thing that you need to do, and then you can build on top of that.
Mm. I love the way you use words mindset, mechanics, and something kind of management, but we'll get to that point as well. But I wanted to dwell a little bit more on mindset. So
Okay.
someone says, okay, yes, I get it. I have to have this mindset, but I don't know where to start. I know you mentioned around getting around the right people. Okay, fine. But I typically can't find those people right now because the people I have around me are people who don't really talk about such. So
Okay.
how else can I who do I need to become to be able
Mm.
to achieve this? Who do I
So
be?
it
Then
no,
go
no,
go ahead.
keep going. Finish,
Yeah,
finish.
because I think that at some point most people feel, okay, I don't want to go external. Like, I don't want to go to talk to somebody. I don't want to go to talk to somebody about my where I am financially and what I want to build as wealth. Maybe I'm an introvert. I'm shy. How do I do that on my own first?
So that's a good question, right? And I'll say this to that person. If you have this dream, or if you have this purpose, or if you have this passion that has been placed inside of you, then you cannot be afraid, and you cannot use introversion as a clutch, like as a
Mm,
limiting belief. You cannot use that. You have to, and if you don't have physical people around you, leverage people online, join groups, join communities. Like, if it's a Zoom call, turn your video off if you don't want to be seen, but reach out, ask for help. On LinkedIn has been such a game changer for me, such a game changer for my business. And people are always willing to lend a helping hand, uh, to lend ears, to lend advice. My mentor told me this. He said, successful people in life, it might be difficult for them to give you money for one reason or the other, but it's very easy for them to give you sound advice. It's very easy for them to share their story and what you can learn from it. So if you don't know where to start, you start small. Remember, I told you this journey is the journey of 1,000 miles, right? But it starts with one step. You just have to take that step. It
mm,
doesn't, in a world where you see fancy social media, you see people who are like crushing it. They're not overnight successes. They have put in the work. They decided every day, they made a decision that they're going to do one thing today to move them closer to their goal, to move them closer to their purpose. So it starts with that, right? It starts with, like I said, being in the right room. It starts with education. Pick up a book, listen to a podcast, ask the right questions, seek out mentorship. It doesn't have to be anything grand. It also doesn't have to be anything expensive, right? You just start. There's so much free everything. YouTube University, like everything is at your fingertips. You just have to decide, I'm going to start. And you have to realize that, like, you cannot let fear continue to hold you back, because I think that more than the fact that you're an introvert is the fact that you are afraid. And so if you can step on that fear, like courage is not the absence of fear, but it's to feel the fear and then do that thing anyways, to recognize that I'm afraid, but that doesn't stop me from scaling, Mount Everest or whatever it is. It doesn't stop me, and it shouldn't stop you either. So to that person who's thinking like, well, I don't know, I'm not sure, I just encourage you to do one thing, one small thing today, whether it's sign up for that class, or whether it's join that free group on Facebook, or whether it's send a quick email to someone who is 5 steps ahead of you, who can help you, whether it's order that book from Amazon, whether it's go on Spotify or Apple or whatever, and download that podcast on how to start. But whatever it is, right? You have to do one thing today. You have to make that decision that, like, today is the day I'm going to start. Today is the day, like, I'm going to etch that in, on sand, and I'm going to take the first step and cross that starting line. But if you don't do that, then this will always just be a conversation that you and I are having, or that you're listening to, but everyone else is taking that step. So the question is,
okay.
when do you start yours?
Mm. That's a beautiful way to end. When do you start yours? I think that's so key, because we keep looking out to other people doing stuff,
Mm-hmm.
scrolling through social media and see how people are making it, but we're not taking our own action. It's only our own
Yep,
action that
yep,
can change
yep,
things, right?
yep.
I was going to touch on something, but I think I'll leave that maybe towards a later end, because you
Okay.
mentioned when you were introducing yourself about, when you were about to start, there were not people like you that were doing what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Maybe I should ask that question. So, and when you say people not looking like you, it could be, okay, maybe for color, for profession. Not many doctors navigating that way.
Yeah.
How then do you had what then did you do to be able to break that ceiling and say, you know what, even though I might have I'm a physician, how am I going to break into the real estate? Like, how did you then do it to be able to break in, regardless of what might be the stereotype around that area?
It's not magic, it's not rocket science, it's the same things that I've said today.
Hmm.
For me, it was not being afraid. And I'll give you practical examples because sometimes you just need practical examples. For me, it was reading. I picked up books on real estate investing, and I learned how to underwrite deals because I wanted to bring them to my investors. I wanted to bring the best of the best deals. I wanted to bring them deals that I personally had underwritten those deals. And those are the deals that I was bringing. So for me, it was education, which I've talked about.
Hmm.
I learned how to read. I read tons of books on real estate investing. I still do. I learned how to underwrite. I still underwrite our own deals. All our Phoenix deals at the end of the day come through me. Like I still review every single one of them before I send them out to our investors. And for me, it was people. It was getting around the right people. I'm a firm believer in mentorship. You can, why not, if I have the opportunity, fast track my growth and with the help of someone else, right? If I can do that, why not? And so those were the things that I personally did to help me grow, so that to be the person that you see here today. But I worked on my mindset, I worked on my limiting beliefs, and then I educated myself. And I wasn't afraid to get in rooms, even if I didn't see people that look like me. My mantra was, I am going there and I'm making space at the table for
Wow.
another woman, for another physician, for another whatever it is, or whoever that person is. I'm making space for them too. But that's how it was. And I'll say this, right? Your dreams might be like large, they might be extravagant, they might be like the most beautiful thing in the world, but if you don't do anything, they'll always remain dreams.
That's
And
true.
that's the one thing that was like my biggest reality, was that I had these wild dreams of how I was going to impact the world. But for me, it started with taking that tiny step. And for me, I'll give you an example, right? It started with, I wanted to educate on LinkedIn, right? I wanted to become a thought leader. And I remember when I didn't have anybody who even listened to me on LinkedIn, but I did the work every single day.
Yeah.
I showed up there. I committed. I said, I'm going to, like, even if it's one person who I'm speaking to, I'm going to speak to that one person, but I'm going to be consistent. And I did that every single day for a whole year. And now I haven't skipped a beat. I think I've just been doing it now. And it just feels normal to me. But that is an example of how you make a decision, how you draw a line in the sand and you say, today is the day I'm going to start doing the thing that will move me forward. You have to decide, and then you have to do.
Too. Great, great. Let's talk about practical steps now. So, someone who, you talk about building income or wealth outside of your job. What are the practical ways, that people can start doing without quitting their job? What can they start doing
Okay.
right now?
Okay. So, oh, that's a good one. Let me think. So the first thing, obviously, that comes to mind because of what I do, what we do at Phoenix Capital, is real estate investing, right? You can be a passive investor in real estate, which is exactly what we do, where we help investors grow wealth. And, as a busy professional, let's just say you love what you do, you love your 9 to 5, but you want to build wealth, right? You can invest in real estate passively, and you're still you're a passive owner of large apartment complexes, and you're still getting income, passive income that's coming in as a path to financial freedom. So that's one way. And also in real estate, you can be an active investor, which means that you're managing the day to day. And that's another way that you can build income outside of your job. But then you could also leverage your expertise. So like, if you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, if you're a speaker, if you're a writer, if you're a content creator, like, leverage that while you are figuring out how to, like, build your build outside of your 9 to 5, build your siding, your side gig or gig, the gig economy, whatever you want to call it, but do all those things while you're trying, while you're still holding on to your 9 to 5. You can think about like digital products. So you can think about, remember, if you are better than one person, just one person, you are an expert. So leverage your expertise, and you can leverage that in creating digital products. You can leverage that in creating coaching programs where you help people get from point A to point B, or you help them get from point A to point B to point Z, whatever it is. But that's another way that you can start building. And I'm trying to think of practical ways, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't know how, I don't know where to start. But that's it. Like you could do consulting on the side. So if somebody needs help trying to get into your area of expertise or whatever it is, you can do consulting. You can help them, again, get from point A to point B. So there are so many ideas. There's so many ways. There's so many creative levers that you can pull. You just have to decide, like, am I ready to do it? And then start taking the steps. But I listed a few. There are tens
tons,
of thousands more.
tons of yeah.
Exactly. But just to kind of help you, I listed a few, and one of them is what we do.
Right, great. When it comes to we hear a lot about quick wins. The reason why a lot of people don't go in all or stay longer in that side gig or stuff is because they want something, they want a return on investment right away. How is that? What kind of mindset should they have when they're trying to build something outside of it? Because, long-term thinking is one, but what kind of mindset should they have if they're trying to transition from an employee to entrepreneurship so that they can be able to build something that lasts?
Yep. So I would say that you said the first one, which is the most important one, I think, is a long-term mindset, right? You can't, it's as simple as Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is an analogy that we all know very well. And I would say that if you are called to do something big, if you're called to do something grand, if you're called to impact lives and make a difference, nobody did that in one day. Nobody did that in 3 months, right? You have to understand that, like, and also the person that you become along this journey is someone who you are going to end up falling in love with, right? You become that person who can take on the challenge. You become that person who at the right time, if you want, will leave your 9 to 5 and do something else, right? So I would say that the most important thing is that long-term mindset. And another thing that I want to tell people is that we struggle with this shiny object syndrome, right? That means you see me on LinkedIn and I'm doing real estate and you're like, wait, she is crushing it. I should do that too. And then 2 days later, you see someone else who is in e-commerce who is crushing it. And you say, well, you know what? I need to do that too. Or you see someone who is on stage and speaking and you're like, this is the thing that is. And so there's all these things that are surrounding you that makes it seem like anybody can do it, right? But you don't know how much work, effort, time that is being put behind the scenes. So I will say, pick something that after you've done research, after this is something you love, this is a passion, this is something you're going to, however you're going to make a difference, right? Pick that and stay in that and work at that. You are bound to succeed. You're bound to grow if you just give it enough time. It's that analogy that my coach told me, which is when you see that Chinese bamboo tree, right? It's tiny, and you put it in the ground and you water it every day. You water it for 5 years, you see nothing. And then it sprouts up. And then in like 3 weeks or 3 months, it like almost touches the sky. The question is, did it take that short period of time? Or did it take the 5 years and change that you used to build it, right? And the answer is that it took 5 years plus the additional time you saw it to grow, because you were nurturing it and you were watering it, you were nurturing it. There was sunlight, there were all the things that it needed to grow above ground and then take off. So when you think about where you're going, right? You're thinking long-term mindset. You are ignoring all the shiny objects and you're putting in the work. You're putting in the daily, small, consistent efforts to see that, like, in the long run, you will win. In the long run, you will make a difference. In the long run, you will be successful. In the long run, you will impact lives. In the long run, you will be able to give significant value to exactly the people that you need to do that to.
Mm. You were talking, purpose came to mind. What is the role of purpose in all of this? Because you mentioned something around people seeing other people do stuff. Oh, this looks like something I should be doing, and they go do it. But I see you do what you do, and I can see there's a foundation that holds, there's a pillar that holds all that you're doing. And what comes to mind is purpose. So talk to us about purpose and your journey. What has that done for you and what you're doing today?
Oh, look, these questions are pretty deep. So I would say I almost feel like purpose is everything, right? You know, you figure out you figure out what it is that you're called to do. You figure out who it is that you're called to be. You figure out how it is that you're going to do that thing, right? Purpose ties all of that together. So I think it's the who, how, what, why, and it all ties and stems from your purpose. And so, and I'll say this, rewind, rewind, rewind. Um, Before you figure out how you're going to do this thing, right? Before you figure out this is the thing, you need to figure out the why behind it. And I
Mm,
think the why I think that it will bleed into your purpose. And when you figure out the reason why you want to take a leap, the reason why you want to pivot, the reason why you want to build a side gig, the reason why you want to step out, right? When you fully understand that, I think that your purpose is tied to that. And I think that that will align with who you are, what you want to do. And so I do believe that when you figure out your purpose, and I'll say this to the person, to the woman, or to the man who's listening and saying, oh, I don't know my purpose, right? Your purpose is not necessarily one thing, or it's not that, like, I was put on this earth to do this one thing. And if I don't do this one thing, then I haven't succeeded. Or if I do only this one thing, then, like, I could sit back and I could chill for the rest of my life. I don't think that's true. I think that your purpose changes maybe in seasons. Your purpose might even change as you grow, right? It might
mm,
evolve. So you might start with, okay, this is what I think I'm doing. And you go out and you do that thing. But then you find out that thing led to something else, right? That thing opened a door to another level of growth. And so your purpose evolves and your purpose changes. It doesn't mean that you forsook that old thing, but
mm,
it just means that you evolved and you grew
mm.
and you changed and you adapted to where you are today. So I think that I hope I was able to answer the question, but I think it's multifaceted. I don't think it's just one thing. And I don't think you should feel like you failed if you don't know that one thing, or if you didn't do that one thing you thought you were supposed to do, if you didn't do it well. I don't think so. I think that as we grow, I think as we learn, I think as we evolve, that our purpose changes, but it might be for the better.
Right. I love the way you explain that, because I see a situation where, and I've seen this a lot, where people, I'm trying to do something. Okay, I've tried this and it was going so well, and then it didn't work out. And then I'm like, okay, what else do I do? And then I try something else. And it's almost like on the outside, people are wondering, what are you all about? Like, you're here today in real estate today, and then you're in e-commerce tomorrow. But again, like you said, we have to understand that we're evolving. Sometimes your you could make a mess in your purpose. Like, you could make a mistake. You could fail in your purpose, and that's part of your learning. That's part of your journey. It doesn't mean that going to something else is a crime, or it's a taboo, or it's because I see people have this guilt of pivoting. We're like, oh no, I've built so much. I built a name for myself here, but because it's not working, and maybe your spirit is telling you that move to something else, but you're like, no, what will people say about going to do something else, right? Like, so Is that something that you've that you echo as well? Like, is that something you've experienced before? Because I think that the approach where people get to and they stay stuck in something, even though the mind, the spirit, their soul doesn't agree what they're doing currently, but because of the fear of or the people or what they're going to say about it, they don't move. Talk to us about that as well.
So, um, one of the one of the mantras that I live by is the opinion of others is none of my business. So you will think what you want, it will not affect me. And that is why I started this conversation with mindset being the foundation, getting rid of fear and limiting beliefs, because that's exactly what all those things are. And if you allow it, it will keep you stuck. If you allow it, you will never move. There is nothing wrong with trying and figuring out, maybe trying and failing. It's okay because you just failed and then it got you closer to your goal. It got you closer to your success, to your win. But if you didn't do that, you wouldn't have failed and you would have stayed stuck, right?
Mm,
So there's nothing wrong with trying. If you feel strongly deep in your heart that, like, this is the pivot, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Use that as a story to teach someone else about how you tried, how you did it, and how you thought this was the way and it wasn't. But use every experience to help you grow, to help you build, to help you become the best version of yourself. So I will say this: those people who have opinions, right? Those opinions come from a place of their fear, and so please don't let that. Don't hold on to that. Don't let that be the reason why you don't spread your wings and fly and make a difference and touch lives like you know you're supposed to.
mm,
Don't let that be your story.
that's right.
Instead you listen to them and you say thank you but no thank you. And that's another reason why I said, who are you surrounding yourself with, right? The people who you surround yourself with should speak life into you, and it's the same way with you to them, right? You are speaking life into them. The people that are surrounding you, when they tell you their massive dreams, it doesn't scare you, it encourages you. It like builds, it fans the flames of like what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you're experiencing.
Mm,
That's what the people around you should, those are your who's, right? And when you tell them your dreams, when you tell them those massive dreams, the dreams that like don't even seem possible, like those are the people that'll say like, when are we starting? Is it 6 o'clock tomorrow morning that we're going
right.
to start knocking this out, right? That's what you want. That is what
Mm,
you want. Like, this life is this life is fun and this life is fast, and you blink and COVID was 5 years ago, right? So
mm,
why not do all the things you want to do? Why not leap? Why not try? Why not just do? What's stopping you from doing, right? And I'm not saying that you do it haphazardly or you don't learn, but you learn and you take what you're using and you grow, right? One of my mentors told me, and I remember this, is done is better than perfect, right? We
mm.
wait until it has to be perfect before we do. But why don't we do and then iterate it and make it better and make it better and keep making it better, but you're still giving value at every step along the way.
Mm. Awesome, awesome. I think I want to switch a little bit to.
Okay.
I saw one of your newsletter. You talked about the 4 hour strategy, right? And
Yep.
that's
Hmm.
to get your first paying customers and stuff. So, what exactly is the 4 hour strategy, and how can someone who is trying to navigate their way to building wealth outside of their 9 to 5, how can they apply that to their life?
Okay. So when I talked about the 4 hour strategy, the one thing I want to do is always be very honest and be transparent. And the 4 hour strategy, it is 4 hours, but it'll probably end up being more than that, right? But I talked about that and I kind of taught and shared that because I wanted you to use it as a way to start. I want you to, like, if this is the thing that you're like, okay, this is tangible. I can do 4 hours, 2 hours before work, 2 hours after work. That seems feasible. Then this is for you. And that 4 hours looks like in the first hour. So you're thinking, what I would say, think about 3 problems that you know how to solve based on your expertise. And so think about, because all value is just helping solve someone else's problem, right? That's value creation. So where they struggle, you have an answer and you bring them value. So the first hour is to figure out what that problem is. And then the next hour is to turn that one problem, create an offer around it. So it can be like, I will help you solve this problem in this number of days by doing this, right? So you can create an offer around that problem to help solve the problem. I can give you an easy example, right? You could be a working mom, right? And you need you want to health is important to you, and you need 2 hours after work to solve a problem, to like go exercise, and because health is important. Well, if I was a babysitter, or if I was someone who was like trying to make a little extra income, right? That's her problem, is that she doesn't have the time or she doesn't have the help. And so I come in as like, I'm solving that problem, right? I will help you take care of your kids, well, bath time, feed them while you go do the thing that you want to do. That's what that looks like. That's a problem, and I have a solution for it, and I'm bringing value to her, because then she gets to go exercise after work. So just a simple, easy example. But so hour one is to list 3 problems that you can help someone solve. Hour 2 is figure out, create an offer, a simple offer around one of those problems. And the third is to reach out to people and tell them that, like, hi, I'm this person. I babysit between the hours of 6 and 8 p.m. And my goal is to help moms who want to implement better healthy lifestyle into their routine. And that's the offer. You've created that. You reach out to 20 people. You might go to your church. You might go to your small group. You might go to like an after school program and advertise. And you reach out to 20 people. Or you just might ask your friends and family to help you with that. And then the last hour is posted on social media. For all the stuff that we see on social media, like imagine if you posted that. So imagine if you turned on your camera and just shot a quick video and say, hey, I'm this person. This is what I do. If you need help, send me a DM. That's what 4 hours looks like. And what you did is you created value for someone who needed the help, and then you get to win as a result of it. You don't need a fancy website. You'll get there eventually. You just need clarity on what problem you're solving, and then you just need courage to go out and do it. And if you have those 2 things, right, you will win. And I use this very simple example and very simple analogy, but I promise you can translate that to pretty much anything.
Anything. Yeah. Problem, offer, people, content. Very powerful. Discover the problem, create an offer on how to solve that problem. Look for people who have that problem, and then create content around the problem. It's simple, easy step to take. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. K. Now let's talk about, someone says, hey, I actually love my job. Is this message for me? I know we've talked about that, but speak to someone who currently loves their job, but they're not thinking about, something else to do on the side. Why should they take this seriously?
So I still think that maybe this message might be for you, but it might be different, right? So I would say that loving your job doesn't mean that you have to depend solely on it, right? I love my job. I love my job, but I don't depend on it, right? I love delivering babies, and I love helping, and I love playing with little kids, and I love to give elderly women a hug. Like, I do all of that in the ER, and I love my job, but I don't depend on it, right? So it now has to be about freedom of choice. So the person that loves their job, you're not using this as an escape, right? But you're using it as freedom of whatever it is that you want, right? Whether it's time freedom, whether it's building generational wealth, whether it's creating something really amazing. You have the option. This gives you the option. So that's what this looks like. You can absolutely love your job, and that's okay. But then you can have the option to, to do what you want. You can have the option to work where you want. You can have the option to build what you want. You can have the option to travel. You can have the option to buy back your time. That's what, figuring out life outside of your 9 to 5 could look like for someone who loves their job.
I love the way you said it here. You can love your job, but don't depend on it. Right? I think it's that dependency that is key there, because some people depend on their job for their health, they
Yep.
depend on the job for their well-being, their joy, so but if you can find other ways that you can depend on, you should be, you should, I think the conversation is, don't let your job be what you depend on, and that dependency can be on anything, right? Create a buffer where you can depend on something else outside of your job.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think it's so
Yep.
important because what we see today is we have a lot of millennials and stuff who are waiting for retirement too, and that's a
Yeah.
different conversation entirely.
Yeah.
Who are waiting
Yep.
for retirement to begin to live life.
Yep.
If you had to speak to that person today, what would you say to that person? Because for me, I see that I'm like, why would you wait to 60 years old to begin
Yeah.
to fulfill purpose, to live your life, right? Why can't you start now? What would
I
you
would say
say to
the
that
exact
person?
same thing. I would say the exact same thing. Like, this is, why not start now? Why not get to live the best of both worlds? You can still put money in your 401k, you could still max that out, but then you could be doing so many other things. You could be building so that you don't have to rely on that. Like, imagine if I didn't have to I won't have to rely on my 401k, but imagine if that option is available to you now. Why wait till then when you can start building something now?
No. Yeah. Okay. To someone listening now, what is the bold step they can take today to begin to reclaim their wealth, reclaim their
Mm.
time, reclaim their purpose? What was the action step they should begin to take today?
That depends on who you are, where you are, what you're doing. But I don't want to say that because you want one thing. I would say, for me, the first step that I took was I reached out to one person that I admired, that I saw that was doing the thing, and I asked them, "How did you get started? Tell me your story." And I wanted to learn from that. For me, that was the one bold action that I took that has like changed the trajectory of my whole life. So
Hmm.
that could be one for you, right? For someone else, it could be join a community of like-minded people who have already done it, and you can learn from that, right? For someone else, it might be sign up for a newsletter because you want to start investing today. For someone, it might be today is the day that I start investing. For other people, it might be you might be sitting and you're saying, you know what, I'm going to do that 4-hour strategy and I'm going to start today and I'm going to create my offer. That could be your one bold step. That's the line in the sand that you're going to cross. So,
Hmm.
like I said, it's different for different people, but I know that for me, my greatest success has come from the who's in my life.
Hmm.
And so for me, the most important thing was figure out who that person is and really leverage them. Figure out how you can give value to them, but also figure out how you can hear their story and learn from them and learn how they did it so that you can bypass step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and just go straight to step 10.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Kim. There's so many questions that I want to ask you, but for time, I'll stop. Maybe some other time we'll have another conversation because I think the next conversation will be around the investing itself. I want to know how
Okay.
you how
Okay.
you how you got into it. What was your first deal like? How did your first no, your rejection? How did that go? How did you broker deals? Like, what is the mindset around those kind of conversations? So there's more to come for Dr. Kim on Grow This Personal podcast. But before you go, 3 questions we ask our guests.
Okay.
You have the choice to answer that in one word. First question is one book that has made a huge impact to your life. What would that be?
For me, it would be buy back your time because we only all have 24 hours in a day. How are you using your 24 hours?
Yeah, not not surprised. Okay. Second question. If you were to, if there's one word that represent where you were 10 years ago and where you are today, if there was one word that has caused a transformation, from you 10 years ago to where you are today? What would that word that you had to embrace?
I would say that for me, it is relentless. And the reason why I would say that is because I didn't take no as an answer. I was afraid, but I still did it. I if somebody told me show up here, I would do everything in my power to be there. If someone said read this book, I would do it. If someone said invest in this thing, I would do it. I Yeah, if I could pick two words, the second word would be growth. But if I had to pick just one word, it would be
Relentless.
relentless. And I read a book called Relentless by Tim Grover. I believe it's Tim Grover. He's the he used to be the athletic director for Kobe and Michael Jordan and Dwayne Wade
Oh,
and the
that must
likes
be
of
a
them.
powerful
And
book.
you have to read that book. That book was so good. And it just asks, who do you need to be? What type of person is someone who defines themselves as relentless, right? Like those people. And if you think about the best of the best in sports, when everybody shoots 20 shots, they shoot 200.
Yeah.
And when everybody's running a mile, they run 10. And so how do you show up every single day? I think that's what differentiates the people who don't succeed from the people who succeed.
See, I'm not surprised at that response. If I one word that came to my mind that I thought you're going to say was audacity, but it's still the same thing, relentless and audacity. So, because I see how you show up online, and it's your energy and passion, is contagious. And I just
Mm,
want to say, keep doing what you're doing. There's so many people you inspire, out
thank
there
you.
on social media. The last question: what's the most unconventional piece of advice that you have received that turned out to be incredibly valuable?
I said that already, and I'll say it again. The opinion of other people should be none of your business.
That's right.
They're you should not care. If you feel strongly about something, do it. Don't be afraid. If you mess up, if you fail, it's okay. You know how many times Jeff Bezos failed, or Elon Musk failed, or Bill Gates, or I could keep going. Do you know how
Or the
many
late Kobe
times?
Bryant.
Oh, the late, do you know how many
Oh,
times? Like tons of times, and they kept going. And so the people who love you the most, they speak from a place of fear, and you cannot let that fear stop you. So if you want
hmm.
to do big things, if you want to make a difference, if you want to go far, sometimes you have to quiet the noise. And those noises come from the opinion of other people.
Other people. Wow. Such a great conversation. Wholesome. I believe this is something that would ignite the fire in the minds of somebody. The way you speak, it's so, it's like you speak with so much precision. And I must give you that. It's so much precision that you can't stop but just take action. So, listening
Mm.
today, if you're watching for the very first time, please give us a subscribe, or follow the podcast. Tell us what was a takeaway from today's conversation. Leave if you have a question for Dr. Nkem. I'll have our social media profiles on the show notes. You can reach out to her. If you're too shy, too afraid, come to me and I'll go to her and ask the question. But it was great having you on the show, Dr. Kim. You want to leave with one last word for somebody? Just give a last word to a 25-year-old listening today.
Ooh, ooh, that's a really, really good question. Ooh, so a 25-year-old who is listening, right? Maybe not a word, but maybe just like a piece of advice. Start messy. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Hmm.
Start with what you know, and don't be afraid to grow. Um, you don't need to quit what you're doing. You just need to build alongside and use that as a bridge.
Hmm.
But please don't be afraid to start messy. It doesn't have to look very pretty, but as you start, you're going to start and you're going to grow and you're going to make it better. That much I can guarantee you, that much I can promise you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kim. It was a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for listening to all our subscribers and those who are listening from all over the world. Thank you for being a part of today's podcast. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a follow. We have a lot of people listening, but we don't have the same amount of people following. Please do give us a follow. It helps the podcast get that visibility. Until we come your way in the next episode, remember your growth is personal. No one is responsible for your personal growth but you. Stay blessed and bye for now.
Bye.